guys, what's going on? Welcome to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath, and I am joined by my friend Eric Grigs, designer of this fine shirt that I'm wearing, for an open, in-depth discussion about, I guess, all things Charlie's Angels. So I would just like to say thank you. Welcome to Serial at Midnight. I see you've got like a little disc. I see DVDs.
Yeah, we pulled up some of the collection there.
And there's Hot Wheels
DVDs. There's a replica of Jill Monroe's Shelby Ford car.
Oh.
Some dolls and stuff.
Then that's kind of appropriate because the Charlie's Angels movie and Ford versus Ferrari both came out the same week, and you're kind of unintentionally homaging
head
both.
To head, right?
So I wanted to have you here because, well, we're in the glow of the new release of Charlie's Angels on Blu-ray, and first you wrote an outstanding piece for serialatmidnight.com celebrating it. Like, it started as a celebration, I think, but it's so informative. It's kind of like a top 10. It's like an appreciation. It's a lot of different things. You are an expert on Charlie's Angels, so
yes,
you don't have
expert.
I was gonna say, you don't have to agree with it, but I will say you are like just these things backwards and forwards, and I don't. I'm still kind of learning some of this stuff, revisiting it on DVD. Like, my memories of Charlie's Angels are mostly in the past, but you are up to date. So I wanted to just have a conversation about what it is that makes this show so special, why it endures, what we connect with about it. And I'll just celebrate it. Maybe we can even get into those movies if you feel like talking about them.
Yeah, definitely.
So where should we begin? Do you want to just start with maybe how we first saw, like, your first experiences with the Angels?
Yeah. What I tried to capture in that article was just like the fun of it, and that's what I've always enjoyed over the years. It's just been a blast. It's just a romp, that kind of a show that the people on the show are in on the joke. They're having fun. They're doing exciting things, and you feel like you're part of it. So that's, I think, part of the magic. I grew up with it, and all those facts and things that I wrote about just, I don't know, stuck to my brain. When I was very young, like, I was a latchkey kid. And so I would come home from school, pour a glass of milk and get a snack. And Charlie's Angels was on in syndication at like 4 or 5. And I would sit in front of the TV and watch that until my parents came home or whatever. So, like, at a very young age, I just absorbed and just devoured Charlie's Angels episode one after the other every day. And so that was it. And as I grew up through my whole life, I just would always watch it when it's on TV. I saw the movies. Just, it was always kind of like a touchstone. So it's probably been my favorite show.
Oh, wow. Great. Yeah. Well, that makes, again, that's why you need to write a book about this. We expect a book, the Charlie's Angels episode by episode podcast. That's what we need.
That would be good.
I don't remember. I don't. It's one of those things. It's like Gilligan's Island and original Star Trek. It just kind of came in at some point. Definitely when you're talking about after school, syndication. I just remember, like, I'd come in for a long time. My appointment television was Batman the Animated Series, and then I feel like maybe it came on at 4 or 5. I was Central Time, so I think 4 maybe. It came on somewhere, and it's always just been one of those things. Like, it was just always there, and I don't remember ever watching like, oh, this is the episode where this happens. I just remember it just always being there. Again, like Gilligan's Island. Like, I can't tell you specific Gilligan's Island episodes. It's just a part of the fabric. It's just there. It's just, so. And it feels like, to me, like in my memory, it feels like Farrah Fawcett never left the show. She was in every single episode, but of course that's not true. So it's just really interesting. And then I feel like it's on MeTV now, I think, or it was on MeTV. Yeah. But it seems to have maybe dropped off the radar in the last 5 years, 10 years. I don't know. Is that accurate?
I think so. It would pop up here and there on channels like MeTV and things like that. But I think what you're describing, episodic television at the time, like Gilligan's Island or Charlie's Angels, were so built to just be that episode. So in syndication, it could just be mixed up and shown however. It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
There were some continuity things over time, but like if you didn't know them, it didn't matter. And so that they kind of do tend to blend all together.
And somebody in the comments of the review video for this release, someone was asking if they hold up, and I was like, that's totally subjective for me. I like that kind of TV. It's a comfort television for me. It's comfort programming for me. And we live in Netflix binging of series where they'll release something and people are done with it by Saturday morning. And they came back with a wonderful point, which is that episodic television like this, you didn't have to binge anything. Every episode stood on its own, and that's actually a plus for something like this, is that there was not a lot of continuity. You just tuned in and you enjoyed it, and then you could kind of move on with your life. And that's kind of how all the TV from that most of TV up until recently is kind of how it was built. And that's actually not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I used to see it as a negative, but now I think it's a plus. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I do think it's a plus. And to the question of whether it holds up, I think it's whether you have the patience for 70s and sometimes 80s TV. The pacing is much slower. One thing that anybody who doesn't have a reference point for Charlie's Angels that I will watch an episode with, they'll be like, oh my goodness. They're like driving in the car. They get out of the car, they go up to the door, they knock on the door. Like that would just be quick cuts. We would already be at the place and having a conversation. So there's a lot of that. It's much, much slower pace.
And then also
a detective show, you want to see them detecting, right?
Exactly. And I was going to say also like in an investigation or something, they'll be like, so where were you again after all? Were you at the place? And then there'll be like this piece of exposition that is so critical to the plot. And if you've gone somewhere to make a sandwich or something, you might miss an important development about something. They don't force feed it to you. They don't like shine a light on and be like, that's the killer. You have to kind of pay attention. You don't have to kind of pay attention. You have to pay attention. All right. So you want to start, I want you to take the lead on this. You have notes, you have things that you want to say. So just take us.
It's interesting that you mentioned, it seemed like Farrah was on the show forever. She never left. But that was a big deal. That she was only on season 1. It was at the height of the popularity of the show, and she decided to leave. It was a massive hit, huge phenomenon, and she was like, I'm out. And it's kind of a fascinating story because she never signed her contract, and she was making more money than the whole year's worth of salary she would make on Charlie's Angels on the poster, the famous red bathing suit poster. She made probably $400 million on that. And that happened just at the beginning of Charlie's Angels. It was kind of separate. And she knew what she was worth and that she could make a lot more money. And I think that was partly why she didn't sign the contract. And of course, she wanted to probably do movies, do other things. And so there was that protracted court battle. They did an out-of-court settlement. She came back for 6 episodes. So again, she was on the show again. It might seem like she's still always there. But that was always fascinating. And I think that Jacqueline, Kate, and Farrah were really good friends. And they were kind of the only 3 that went through this crazy, weird media storm. So I think that bonded them. And once Farrah left, I think, from what I've read, Kate took it pretty hard and didn't really welcome Cheryl on the set because I think she thought Farrah was going to come back and just did not want Cheryl there. And so for people who say, oh, the acting's a little shaky, and it is in places, but I look at like Kate and Cheryl interacting as angels and best friends. I'm like, that acting is pretty good because they did not like each other on set. There were some on-set difficulties. I find stuff like that interesting, the backstory of things like of Charlie's Angels.
Do you think that Farrah Fawcett's decision was, how do you feel like it worked out for her? Do you think it was the best thing for her to do, or do you think that she should have stayed?
It didn't work out well for her. I think history shows that when you go toe-to-toe with producers, you might win. You win the battle, and she got out of her contract, and but it damaged her. I'm sure the producers and other folks in Hollywood were like, "You're blacklisted," because she didn't appear in much for a while. It even took her acting reputation to kind of recover. Not until Extremities and The Burning Bed. She really didn't appear in many things. I think there's that movie with Kirk Douglas, which was a bit of a flop, but yeah, she didn't really recover. The rotating cast, we can talk about that.
Absolutely.
Since Farrah kicked it off. The idea of just replacing the Angels, the producers saw eventually, hey, this is not a bad thing, because as like the seasons went on and the ratings would dip or decline, just let's fire it up and find a new Angel, put out an Angel search. You get like built-in PR. Everybody wanted to tune in the next season to see who the new Angel was. So that was kind of fascinating. And Kate left the series after season 3 because the producers were not giving her flexibility. Again, she wanted to be a movie star, wanted to be bigger than Charlie's Angels. And she was offered the role in Kramer versus Kramer that Meryl Streep won the Oscar for. And that, her not being able to film at the same time and not be able to do that role just sunk the deal for her. She wanted out. She started making comments like, the scripts are so light that if you dropped them from the ceiling, they'd take a week to hit the floor. And the producers were just not having it. They saw her as a liability and thought, hey, bring a new fresh Angel on board would really help. So we got Shelley Hack, the classy Angel, which is a little, they wanted to class it up. The Angels were wearing kind of less bikinis. They were just not the kind of overt sex symbol that they were in seasons past. And she kind of brought the glamour back. She only lasted one season. It's kind of sad the way they let her go too. Story has it like at the end of the season, everybody, including David Doyle Bosley, got a note that said, hey, we can't wait to have you back next season. But Shelley Hack didn't. And she found out, I guess, in the papers and the news that she was off the show. And they still had 2 episodes to film. So how awkward is that? So if you watch I think the 2-parter at the end of the season was the last to be filmed, the One Love, Two Angels. I always watch that and kind of feel bad for Shelley Hack, kind of knowing and watching those scenes that she knows she's not coming back.
That's like those people that find out that they're fired from Saturday Night Live, like before the end of it, and they're just like, oh. And then Lauren will be like, well, we didn't really. You'll be fine. You'll go on to wonderful things.
Yeah, they never acknowledge their presence ever again. It's like they weren't there. We'll never speak of them again. Yeah. Wow,
that's crazy. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, since we were going through season by season, to end that conversation, don't want to not give love to our final original Angel, Tanya Roberts. And who can forget her sparkling debut in a gold lame outfit, clinging to the top of a car. You see that in the credits scene. Fantastic. She was like a real firecracker. Yeah. And she apparently Cheryl Ladd has said, like, she would have done 10 more seasons. She was so excited to be cast. She threw her all into it. You can really see it in her character. But the other Angels were kind of done. Jackie was at the end of her 5-year contract. She knew she was done at the end of the season. Cheryl Ladd had a kid. They wanted more flexibility in the scripts. One thing about season 4 that viewers can watch that's very interesting, to go back a little bit with Shelley Hack, is they started doing more individual Angel-centric episodes. So you'll see in season 4, it's not a lot of the 3 together investigating a case. It'll be like just Tiffany, or this is a Chris episode. The other Angels are there, but I think they were trying to give Jacqueline and Cheryl more flexibility in the shooting schedule, not having to be on set all the time. And I think that's one of the reasons it hurt Shelley Hack, as, she wasn't, like, the audience didn't take to her. But really, her episodes where she got to shine came much later in the season, and people didn't really warm up to her as much yet. Not that she was bad. She just was very different. And they had kind of lost Kate as the leader, the smart ringleader of the group. And she can't be new and come in and be the leader, fill that role. So that ended up being kind of like the Kelly role. and it just tweaked the dynamic a little too much that viewers were like, meh, she's kind of just okay.
Okay, so where do we want to go from here? Where do you want to lead us?
Why don't we jump into the longevity of the series, or we could talk about, let's first, before we forget, talk about the Mill Creek set, because mine just arrived Tuesday, and you're right. I mean, it looks spectacular. It's seeing the episodes in HD. For me, it's almost like experiencing it new all over again. Because even when I was, a young kid sitting in front of the TV watching the syndicated episodes, they many times looked like crap. They were just awful. And now, I mean, seeing them as the way they were shot and intended is pretty amazing. So big props to Mill Creek for that. Yeah.
I agree 100%. And the way that they did it, the encode is so good. Like, they're not crammed onto discs. Sometimes that's been the case in the past, is like 9 episodes or 10 episodes of something, like just hours and hours crammed onto a disc. That's not the case with these. They really have room to breathe. And in the course of full disclosure, I was talking to you about this the other day. I found at least one episode that maybe I think is a DVD upscale. I don't know if it was Angel on the Line, I think, is the one I told you about.
Yeah.
And it's just a little soft. It doesn't have the same sharpness as all of the other ones that I've checked. And of course, we just got the set, so we're still going through it. But if anybody's watching this, there is at least one that looks like it's an upscale, but it still looks better than it ever looked on television. Like you were saying, we watched these on tube TVs with, commercial breaks and scan lines and all kinds of stuff. And it's just amazing how these old shows can look pretty much brand new. Like they do. They are so shiny and crisp. And it really, it's to the benefit of the show. And I don't know. I'm so happy with it. And just compared, I thought the DVDs looked pretty decent, but then comparing the DVDs, it's like, whoa, night and day. So yes, thumbs up. Thumbs up.
It's cool to like see the stuff that was still shot on film that can look really good like this. And that we entered an era of like everything on TV was shot on video, and it just looks really bad. It's kind of that just made it in before that happened. So
yes, that's true. Because at this point, Three's Company was shot on video, and it was the late 70s, just a year or two after this. So we got lucky with this one. So okay, where were you going to lead us? You were going to talk about.
I don't know. I was going to jump into the franchise and the reiteration, but let's stick with the original series. Okay. I know you hate favorites, but I have to ask, if it doesn't have to be favorite, but is there a particular Angel out of our original 6 that you gravitate to as being the best? And do you have like a favorite episode or one that like you always remember the show from? And I know you said you're still exploring it all.
Yeah. So I'm just going to be honest. I really like Tanya Roberts, and I know that she was barely on it in the grand scheme of things, but I think she's really pretty, and that's I can't separate those two things. And of course, I love Tanya Roberts also now, like as an adult. That 70s show, she was great on that. The movie, like she's in Beastmaster, so like as a kid, Beastmaster was like, oh man, he talks to animals. And so there was this like she was like the movie star for me, and I know that like Farrah was a movie star.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. So it's probably Tanya Roberts. Yeah. Not a statement on her acting ability or her presence on screen or anything like that, but I do just like her. I just like her.
That's funny. My spouse Sam, Tanya Roberts, Julie, favorite Angel.
That makes me feel better that I'm not the only one who's like, well, she's just really cool. I like her.
Yeah, mean, in my article, I said she doesn't get enough love. I do think she's great. She's actually really great on the series. But I think so many people were like, oh, we're over this. We're done. And she just kind of came at the wrong time. And how bananas it gets that they're like, what police academy is she going to graduate from? Nope, she graduated from a top school for models. So they just were like, we're not even going to say that she was a police cadet.
Yeah, don't even try.
Yeah.
So what is you want to talk about your favorites?
I mean, growing up, I thought Chris was great because she was goofy, and that's how they wrote her character. She turned the role down twice because she was like, "Oh, I will never live up to this Farrah Fawcett media storm." But she finally agreed when the producers said, "Well, what if we write your character like this? You'll be the kid sister of Jill, and you're kind of learning your way, you kind of fumbling through." And she played it goofy, and as a kid, I liked that a lot. As I grew up and in the earlier years to my adulthood, I mean, it's got to be Sabrina. She's the smart one. So yeah, she's my favorite all time. And I just love Kate Jackson. I know she's like difficult or called difficult on set. The show she did right after Charlie's Angels, Scarecrow and Mrs. King is like an amazing 80s timepiece of what we thought of America and spies, and also was kind of just in the same vein as Charlie's Angels. So yeah, for me it's Sabrina.
Yeah, Scarecrow and Mrs. King is a show that we watched in my house. It was like appointment television.
Yeah.
Like Charlie's Angels was the syndication thing when I was a little bit older, but we watched the Scarecrow and Mrs. King I don't remember what night it was, but it was appointment TV.
I'm so excited to hear that. Like it's for me, it's like, which is my favorite TV show? It's Scarecrow or Charlie's Angels. They're just good. And they're just of that era, that type of show that just does not get made anymore. I don't know if it can be. Like people want it grounded. They need it like to look real, or they need it to be like way funny and a parody and super campy. And like it kind of exists on both of those and in between and not quite, and you kind of have to greet it as that. And just I don't think these types of shows will work anymore.
We're in an interesting place with that to that point. Like you can't have a straight take unless it's super gritty, and you can't have a lighter take unless it's just all out ironic. It seems like there is no patience for that middle line with that winking, as you said, that winking take. We don't seem to be able to do that right now.
Yeah, I mean, every kind of reboot property now, not every, but most, you kind of look back at when they're mining television properties for movies. So many of them just go to like, oh, this is full-on comedy now. It's really sharing just the name of the property, but it's just this bizarre, over-the-top comedy because they just don't know what to do with it. Yeah, the tone is just completely different.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a segue to those reboots and stuff, which maybe we should lead into. But I do want to answer your question. I did not ignore it deliberately. I like. When I think of Charlie's Angels, usually the first thing that I think of is Angels. Is it Angels in Chains or Angel in Chains? I can't remember which one, but the prison one.
Yeah, Angel in Chains.
That's all that always flashes in my mind. That's like one of the first things that I think of when I think of Charlie's Angels. But of course, now I love some of there's Dean Martin. There's two-parter in Vegas, right? Yeah. Like how do you not name that as a favorite? But if I'm being honest, it is the prison episode. And it's the original cast as well, the original trio of angels. And there's just something about that, just like on the lam and the California, like it's just so clearly Southern California. There's probably
I guess there was a stretch when it first aired. I don't know if this is 100% true, but I did hear like it hit the cover of the New York Times, all the cast in the chains from the episode. And they reran the episode the next week, got like the same or higher ratings. I think they might have rerun it again on a different night, bananas ratings again. And the TV executives were like, we might not need to make new episodes. We're just going to keep running this one. And I think that was part of the reason that it's like so ingrained in culture that when people think of Charlie's Angels, they're like, oh, Angels in Chains. That's the touchstone. Even the 2011 reboot show had an episode that kind of referenced that. It's also called Angels in Chains. They tried to mine the well and like get the nostalgia machine working up. It was just kind of too late on that one.
So speaking of that show, I haven't watched it, and until this Blu-ray set, I didn't even know it existed. You watched it. What do you think about it as an idea of a modern reboot of a classic property? What do you think about it?
I thought, okay. It's fine. The problem it has is they're not unique enough. Each angel, even in the movies and the original series, has like a personality. They've got a story. They were in the 2011 reboot. They were just kind of there. They were just all the same. They were interchangeable. I know I'm going to say something that is controversial, but Minka Kelly was terrible, and people love her from Friday Night Lights, but she's just so boring, and like it's sad because like wow, she could have really done. It's just terrible. I think the plots were about the same as a Charlie's Angels episode, so I don't think it was necessarily the script writing. It was okay. I think it's more about the love of the property. If I had to say what the failing is I read an article at the time in 2011. Revenge was on TV at the same time, if you remember that show, and it was real soapy and like plot twists and melodramatic. And they compared the two shows that were premiering, and they said like somebody really loves this show. They get their characters, they're just into it, they want to write it well, but somebody doesn't really love Charlie's Angels who's writing it. They just wanted to like make it. And like if you have an investment, you love the source materials and you want to make it great, I think it's like people were just showing up for a paycheck. And that's just really felt in the 2011 reboot. Mm-hmm. It just was there, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
I enjoy it as kind of like an oddity. It's like, oh, that's interesting. An interesting blip on the road.
Second level. That's kind of, we're going to talk about the movies too, but I understand that take because we're seeing a lot of things now where they're getting greenlit based off of, this is a property that we have and we can monetize this. The Baywatch movie, the Chips movie, there's so many, the Starsky and Hutch movie, they really are so, you can just tell that those particular instances, they're just taking the name of something and there's not a sense of loyalty to what originated it. But do you want to continue talking about the series or do you want to move into the movies?
No, I think this is a logical place, but to that point, what's really cool about everything that's come past the original series is they aren't reboots. They're all kind of on the same timeline. They're a continuation. I believe even the 2011 show was. And maybe we should be thankful for Farrah for kind of kicking that off and getting the series known as, it had a rotating cast. It was like, oh, here's the new Angel, here's the new thing. So it fed into this narrative of we're just checking back in. Where is the Townsend Agency right now? Who are the Angels? What's going on? So I think everything that came after it, respecting that sort of continuity, makes it really work. Makes it interesting, at least. Yeah.
I appreciate that. So do you like the I guess the 2000 and 2003 I think is when they came out, the oh my god, Cameron Diaz. I was trying, like, what's her name? Cameron Diaz, Lucy Liu, Drew Barrymore. Are you fans of those? Are you a fan of those?
I really love the original, the first one in 2000. I think it was super well done. It really leaned into the camp elements. So it was super over the top, but it hit all the points. It knew its reference points. Again, speaking to you have to kind of love the property for it to take off. And I think Drew Barrymore producing, she really grew up on Charlie's Angels like I did, and loved it and wanted to do right by it. And I think that comes across. It's super goofy. It's super over the top. It's an actioner. It was right around the same time of that, I think, the first Tom Cruise Mission Impossible. So you really see that. You see the Matrix kind of wire work stunts. So it's very of its time. But it was, again, like gangbusters, like the original Charlie's Angels. It was the right time for that to be brought back into the public consciousness. And I think, I think it was just fun. Again, like the series, it was a romp, and that's what you want from a Charlie's Angels movie.
Okay, I appreciate that. You know, that's, I don't have a lot of opinion about them, to be perfectly honest with you. I watched them. I saw both of them in the theater, probably opening weekend. but they're not things that I've really remembered. And like you made the Mission Impossible comparison. So Mission Impossible, I think the first one was 95, but it was the second one, Mission Impossible 2, that I think was around the same time as Charlie's Angels, and that is the Mission Impossible that is like all style and very little substance. Mm-hmm. It's just like explosions, like kicking things. Like he does a complete like kick upside, like he does a flip kick and then lands on his feet. It's crazy stuff, and that's what we were seeing in Charlie's Angels. And I don't know. We're watching the Mission Impossible movies again, and that particular one, it's like this is the one that stands out as not having a lot on its mind. It's just like look at us. But this makes me want to go watch those movies again because I'm connecting with your passion, and it makes me want to give them. Not that I don't like them. I just want to let me rediscover these and see if I can tap into what you're tapping into, and see if I can find that connection to Drew and her love for property.
I think Drew and Cameron and Lucy Liu, their friendship, they definitely got along, and you need that. That's part of the fun of Charlie's Angels. You're watching people be friends and support each other and kick ass together. And if that is not working, if the cast doesn't gel or can't act above that, then it's missing something. And I think they had it. They had it in the 2000 movie.
Do you like the recasting of? Do you like the casting of Bosley in those two movies?
I know Lucy Liu had a lot of trouble with Bill Murray on set, and that's why he didn't come back for the sequel. But Bernie Mac in the sequel, that's amazing casting. He's fantastic. I mean, his personality is just like perfect for Bosley. So maybe there's no loss there. I think they were good. Yeah.
So, mild spoiler territory for the modern movie, which I think that the new movie, which I think that probably most people watching this maybe didn't see, because I don't think anybody's seen it at this point. I saw it, you saw it, but I'm gonna maybe mildly spoil that movie. Is the new movie the one that introduces the idea of Bosley as a title and not a person? Was that in the earlier ones, or was that from this movie?
No, that's a new thing, which is a pretty interesting concept, because again, talking about like if we're looking at it as a linear narrative, where is the Townsend Agency now? Like, 13 years after those original films, going global, most companies do that. So that's kind of interesting. And then needing different Bosleys or a handler for the Angels around the world, that makes a lot of sense. Okay,
cool. I thought that was one of the more unique things that this one brought to the table, is that it's now like a designation. I actually thought that was cool. Do you want to talk about the new movie? Did you like it?
Yeah. I did. I liked it a lot. And to be fair to everybody, I think it was mainly a marketing problem. Because when those trailers came out and it was announced, I was like, oh, Kristen Stewart is going to be an angel. And I just I saw the trailer and they were just kind of like, meh. So I get where people are coming. Get that. Yeah. But seeing it, going to actually see it in the theater and form my own opinion, I loved it.
What? Why would you do that? What is that? Going to the theater and making your own opinion?
It's crazy.
We don't do that.
So I loved it. I dragged my husband to it, who was mildly interested and really only going for me. And he left the theater going like, that was so much fun. He was like, I really enjoyed that movie, which I was completely surprised at. I liked it, obviously, but I didn't think he was going to come out enjoying it that much. I think, again, it goes back to like really respecting the property that you're given and loving it and want to do right by it. And I think Elizabeth Banks really did. She had her head in the game. She made the right references. Again, going back to Kristen Stewart, I thought she was just going to, she's got that kind of sad face. And I'm not a fan of the Twilight movies, but some people are. That's fine. She was phenomenal. She was funny. Yeah. She was sexy. Oh my gosh. Yes. Not on my radar at all. But she just was pretty freaking amazing in that movie.
That's exactly how I felt about her too, because I think I said in my video review, like I saw Twilight, I was like, I don't think these are for me. They feel very like I was too old for it, I think. But She has never been someone who just like I don't think about Kristen Stewart. I have no opinion on Kristen Stewart, but in this movie, you're right. She was just like, boom. She was just sexy. She was like I could not take my eyes off her. Anytime she was on screen, no, if there was an explosion over here, I'm watching Kristen Stewart, and I was like, wow, like where did that come from? Who knew?
Who would have thought? Yeah.
I think they're really leaning. Like she did remind me of Farrah, at least twice in this movie. I think they kind of leaned into that. They were like, we're gonna make you Farrah Fawcett. She's got the hair in the beginning.
Yeah, there was great comedy, there's great action. And for the people who want like a grounded take, it was not campy like the 2000s movies. It was just a really solid movie. I mean, could the script writing have been a little bit better? Sure, but it was just a Charlie's Angels mission like you would expect. I thought for a lower budget movie, I think it was like around 50 some million. They did great with that. Could it have been amazing at 100 million? Yeah, probably. But I think just Elizabeth Banks just squeezed every drop out of that budget. That's probably why they're not maybe the A-list stars that they got for Charlie's Angels. That hurt it. The marketing hurt it. The word of mouth hurt it. And I think that's the thing that like we've been spending this time talking about what Charlie's Angels is, and it from the original series to this movie, those themes of empowerment and friendship and women being able to do anything is the same from then till now. But if people use certain words online, you can convince other people to get upset about it. And really, I don't see much difference. There were some kind of ham-fisted references, but like it's different. We update everything to modern times. This makes sense. It really just made sense to me. And I liked it a lot. And I think that if people would just go see it, they'd have a good time. I think you mentioned that when it hits streaming and people don't feel like, oh, there's the hurdle of paying and going to the movie theaters, they're just going to love it and discover it. It's a shame. It's definitely probably never going to get a sequel or continue. This might be the end of the franchise, and it's a shame. But I think it's worthy. And like Elizabeth Banks said, she's glad that it's out there. And what a great sense of humor on Twitter. She was like, well, I guess if you're going to have a flop, you should put your name on it 4 times. That's the kind of positivity and the fun and the coolness that Charlie's Angels should exude. And if it's like you just have a negative opinion because you just heard somebody else say something about it, then it's like, who cares?
Yeah. I don't even feel like I should say anything I should just let that be the end of it, because I really like that take. That's slightly different from my take, but I appreciate that so much. I think I'm just going to let that stand, and I won't even say anything.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, 2 middle-aged men talking about Charlie's Angels, and we didn't feel attacked about the women's empowerment team at all. Not once.
No. My issues with the movie have nothing to do with who's in it. They have to do with storytelling things. It's just, I said, here I am. I'm going to be very brief with it. I think some of the plot elements are just a little bit generic in today's marketplace. We have so many movies where there's the guy who wants to use this thing to take over the world, and then there's always like this. It's very like every video game has that plot. Every mid-budget action movie has that plot. And I wish that it had been just a little bit more unique. But here's the thing, from what I want is probably not what a lot of other people want. I want that connection to, like, I want a detective investigation movie. That's what I want. That's not what the last 2 movies were. And so many people love those movies. And it's not what this one was either. So what I want is really connected to the original series, where it's not like action set pieces. It's maybe some car chases, but like a focus on talking to people and solving a mystery. And that's not really what this one was about. This one kind of leans into that almost like global domination, James Bond kind of thing. Yeah. That's just where we are with cinema right now. That's kind of just a product of the time. So that was my thing. It wasn't that I didn't like it. I was just like, it's another one. It's like superhero movies where a light opens up in the sky and comes down into the city. It's like every superhero movie does that. But none of my issues were character based. None of my issues were like, oh, they're cramming women, they're cramming an agenda. Like, look, everybody's got an agenda. The movie that so many people love, the original Charlie's Angels movie, Lucy Liu, that right there, that movie had an agenda. It had a diversity agenda. If you're looking for agendas, it had one. but so many people love that movie, and we didn't call it out. No one was doing this back then. We just watched it and we're like, yeah, it's good.
Right. I mean, if you look at the original Wonder Woman show of the 70s, if you look at Buffy in the 90s, all of those are the exact same themes. But now, some people who have a profit or an agenda motive to use certain words to attach to it, they understand how that can really like trigger and feed into people's emotions, and they're using that. And just I feel sad for fandom that people feel and allow themselves to be used that way instead of just seeing something and forming your own opinion. I think that's more exciting, and that's I think what we get from Serial at Midnight too. Just to give you props that the discussion is real and you can disagree, but just don't regurgitate other kind of talking points from somebody that's just wanting to be negative and wanting to tear things down. Like, let's actually have a discussion of whether we liked it or we didn't and why on its own merits.
Yeah. And that person who's saying all the negativity is riding that negativity all the way to the bank. It's so profitable. Those are the videos that are getting the clicks. I don't even want to give them the time of the day. We'll leave it there because they don't deserve conversation. That is a very distant part of YouTube and where we're at right now. It does not define what we do. And so we will continue to have open, real, honest conversations about what we think and why we think it, and back and forth. So that way, look, I like this movie better having talked to you about it. I got to go revisit the other two movies because of the way you talked about them. So that conveyance of ideas, the passion, the enthusiasm, that's always contagious, and that's what we try to do here.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's more exciting and it's more fun to see people succeed than to root for their failure. And if bringing it back to Charlie's Angels, that's what makes the property fun when it's firing on all cylinders. You know, you're rooting for these three women to kick ass and take down the bad guys. And when they do it and they're having fun doing it and they look glamorous and they're in these amazing locations, that's a lot of fun to watch, you know? So I think that's the endless appeal for me for Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, you know what you just said pointed out some hypocrisy in me, and I'm going to address it publicly right here. Charlie's Angels was about exotic locations, exotic outfits. That has always been part of the brand. So for me to say, well, they're kind of trying to make it a Bond thing, I bet if they'd had the budget, they would absolutely have done that even more in the original series. So I can't say, well, I like it here, but I don't like it here. That's me being hypocritical, and I apologize. I'm sorry. You're right. It's always been there.
No, I mean, I think I wrote in my review that there's something for everybody here. And I think that's maybe why the 70s show left such a big legacy, that like everybody was watching. You might be watching for different reasons, and it might be like resonating with you for a particular reason, but it's all there, you know? Like if you want to disregard this part of it, that's fine, and just watch for the where are they next and what are they doing next, or you know, it's there. And I think that's why they kind of caught lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, it had a lot of different layers to it. It wasn't just one thing. It had different, like you said, different things for different people. Yeah, that's great. So I guess that's a good place to put a pin in this for now. You feel good leaving it there? You got anything else you wanted to talk about?
I do. I mean, I could talk for hours and hours, but let's not do that.
We'll come back for a part 2. That's what we'll do. I think this was a blast. I'm so glad. So thankful for you for doing it. And we should come back and talk more about this. So where can people find you? Do you have anything you want to plug? Any websites or any designs?
I do pop culture designs, buttons, pins, shirts, all sorts of stuff like that, like the Serial at Midnight t-shirt that I designed for the community. I do that. You can find me at ericgriggs.com and queerprints.com. They'll go to the same place. So if you want to pick up some swag and cool things for the holidays, they're there. Oh, no, I'm working on a new project called the Pop Trash Museum. So we'll have to talk about that a little bit later as that's more formalized. But by the time this video hits, it might be up. So we'll talk more about that at another time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to me about Charlie's Angels and sharing that knowledge. And I'm going to say it, that expertise. It has been a blast. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity too. Take care.
And guys, you watching this, thank you for watching this video. Weigh in on your comment, your thoughts on Charlie's Angels in the comments below. And we will just, as always, continue the conversation civilly, respectfully. That's what we do. Guys, thank you so much. Take care. And until next time, I will catch you.